I had two separate items to discuss today. The first was the setting, about non-conspiratorial setting for the assassination because of the four timelines or four strands of chance that two converged with bringing Oswald and President Kennedy together, and then 2 days later, two more strands of chance converged to bring Oswald and Jack Ruby together. And those are such chancy events that they eliminate the possibility of conspiracy in both shootings. So they take conspiracy out of the whole assassination. One thing you could say is it's so chancy that it implies great command and control by a conspiratorial group that was so powerful as to hide all traces of itself for 40 years. The other approach, the alternative, is to say, no, it is just as it appeared. There were two independent guys, nimble non-conspirators. That's Oswald on the one hand, and then 2 days later, Jack Ruby. Chance left very short margins, far too short for any conspiratorial group to take advantage of. I mean, don't forget, the motorcade was planned only within days of the assassination. It was not planned weeks or months before. The trip to Dallas originally had no motorcade planned. That was put on because of a snafu earlier in Fort Worth. They tried to fill the time by having a long motorcade, and that's the reason they used the airplane, by flying in the airplane between Fort Worth and Dallas, which is 30 miles, which you can drive in half an hour. They said, we're going to take Air Force One because everybody knows how much time it's going to kill loading it up and then getting the people off in the big reception. And together, the motorcade plus the airplane ride should fill all the time that got made available when Texas Christian University canceled its honorary degree. It was decided, it is written down by people that were there, that it was decided to have a motorcade, and the route was chosen 4 days before the event. It was first publicized in the papers 3 days before the event, and the first map of the route that drew everybody's attention, particularly the people who worked in the book depository, 1 day before, Thursday morning, and the assassination was Friday. Nobody could have known weeks ahead because it didn't exist weeks ahead.
Isn't that plausible that they would be able to snap into action within 24 hours?
One could conceive of such a thing. My response to that is, show me the evidence. Show me something. There isn't anything. It's been 40 years. There's zero evidence for any of that. We can speculate that lots of things might have happened. We can even speculate that an army of well-trained conspirators could have jumped into action within 24 hours. It is extremely unlikely. And when you look at what Oswald actually did that day, he saw the newspaper when it came in to the school book depository. The afternoon newspaper appeared around 10:30, and everybody was buzzing at that point. He saw the newspaper along with the guy that would give him rides every other weekend back to Irving where his wife was living, and he then asked abruptly, Wes, could you drive me home that night? And Buell Wesley Fraser said, sure I can, Lee, you can always ask me, but why are you going today? It's a Thursday, it's not a Friday. You usually go on Friday. And he then started the story of the curtain rods, which of course he didn't need because the room in the rooming house he was living had curtain rods. It's high-level deception among the conspiracy researchers who have convinced themselves for 40 years that they had something on the flimsiest of evidence. The situation now is fundamentally very similar to what it was 40 years ago. The core physical evidence in this case was set within roughly 1 day after the assassination. And remember, Oswald killed twice that day. Right? He killed the policeman in cold blood right after he'd killed the president, and he tried to kill a third time in the theater with his pistol when they were grabbing him. Right? The second killing is better documented than the first killing because there were so many witnesses and there's better physical evidence from it. Right? But what I have seen one more time this weekend, and what a lot of people in the audience have seen that I've talked to, is that there is nothing new, there is nothing old, there isn't anything here to support this. Several people have come up to me after my talk and said, "You are the first one that made any sense this weekend. I came here expecting to see proof that it was a conspiracy, and I got a lot of people talking about a lot of stuff and no real demonstration of anything." Right? Several people came up to me after the talk, and they all had the same story to tell. Right? The conspiratorial community in the JFK assassination has deceived themselves for 40 years. They have put out a story that the evidence is right around the corner, that they almost have it, that they just have to keep working harder, and that pretty soon, they will have the proof that they've been going after for 40 years. It's the same story every year, every conference like this. Right? This is exactly parallel to UFOs, alien abductions, crop circles. You look in the book by Carl Sagan, his last book, The Demon-Haunted World, and you will see the exact equivalent to what's going on at this conference. And one of the guys that came up to me, a high school teacher this morning, said, I came into this conference expecting something academic, and what I've seen reminds me of the UFO conference. And I said to him, "You're right, buddy, that's just what it is. It's exactly the same thing, the same mentality." And these people are going to have to account for this someday, because for 40 years they have deceived 80% of this country into a false history. That's serious stuff.